Ready? I just saw the opening to Q. All right. So I want to start out with, I thought it'd be kind of funny. That's kind of a Joel Osteen thing, I'm not going to tell a joke, but I call it the apologetic lesson of the day, which I'm going to start doing more of. Okay? And the apologetic lesson of the day is when Elijah battled depression, which he did, which is why I love the Bible, it tells the truth, right? God did not send him an angel to preach to him. He didn't send an angel to tell him to pray more, and he didn't send an angel to condemn him for feeling that way he felt. He sent an angel to comfort him while he rested. Okay? So that's my lead-off apologetic lesson of the day. And again, I'm going to start doing more of these next week. So stay tuned. I do want to shout out, because he does watch the show, which we're just starting out, to shout out to Pastor Marquis. He's one of my closest friends. I think we all realize he's highly gifted. And as I said earlier off the record, his wife Crystal, they do ministry. It's 6-7 days a week, and they have 3 kids under 5. So it's I appreciate him making the time to come out here, and I appreciate that. So I want to talk to you about highly evidenced after the afterlife. As I said earlier, before you walked in, I would love to sit up here and play NDEs, and I already told you all this earlier, but they're all about an hour and a half long. Okay. Now, when I first started this Bible study, and I still have these handouts, I want to encourage you. What's the old adage? If you do something 14 minutes a day, you become a master by the end of the year. I gave you some of the best resources. Somebody asked me before I started the show, how do you know so much about this? Because I go to these sites. It's not because of anything special, because I'm not very smart. All right? So, and a couple of my kids are going, amen. All right, so, Dr. Long, some of you may have heard him. He started the NDRF, 1998. He's a scientist. I think he has NDEs in different languages on that site, okay? Dr. Bruce Grayson, psychiatrist. He's written a bunch of stuff. Pim von Lommel, a bunch of other people. Raymond Moody, who wrote the book Life After Life, 75, okay? And Michael Sabom, who's a cardiologist, okay? Randy Kay, I listen to him a lot. His podcast, he was a medical CEO, and then he had Afterlife thing, wrote one book, but he's about that. I do like Randy in that Randy, I know, researches the doctors and everybody else, okay? So if you haven't had this handout, and then Dr. John Burke here in Austin, Texas. John Burke, engineer, his dad, you read his story, had a book next to him about kind of afterlife experiences. His dad's dying. He was not a believer, read the book. He was an engineer. He thinks like an engineer, and now he leads a big church in Austin, and he is one of the top. John Burke. In fact, you'll see John Burke now with Lee Strobel's new book, Supernatural. You'll see John Burke and Lee Strobel together, because Lee's in also Texas as well. And of course, the legend, Dr. Gary Habermas, who's been studying these since the 70s, since Moody came out with his book. Obviously, he's known for his minimalist theory. So if you don't have this handout, pick it up on the way, because in this way, you can go watch these things and learn on your own. Now, there's a lot of stuff out on the YouTube about it. And let me tell you one that really bothers me. You'll hear people talk about the source and the light and yoga and their stuff like that.
Reincarnation.
Yes.
All that stuff. Yeah.
Please understand, those people, when Dr. Long and all these people try to interview these people and everything else, they just kind of, So there's people trying to make money, trying to write books. That's why I like Randy. Randy wrote one book. I like all these guys. I can't say enough about all these guys. That's why I include the top guys. Go to their sites, watch them on YouTube, take 10, 15 minutes a day, instead of watching a show or whatever you do or anything else. I was on vacation with this amazing house that I could never afford to be in, with all these 10 kids and run around, and their husbands and boyfriends and girlfriends. And then if I wasn't bothering them about playing games, and I laugh because I have to avoid that, and I'm 62 years old. So instead of doing that, take the time out. And I know you and I got to know each other very well. And just since I've known you, you've done that, and you've become amazing knowledge. Well, I know you know a lot too. We've become fast friends recently. So if you want to, I'd like to present NDEs here, and I'd like to do it but it would be very voluminous. But I am going to go over some excerpts of ones today so I can give you, because we've done all the other stuff. All right, enough about that. So I'm going to put that, there's some on the desk. And by the way, I have notes from my previous lessons, or you can go on the site and I'll send that to you and you can watch them. They're unedited. I'm not going to form a podcast and make me look smarter than I am. I should. I've had people offer to do that. We're not there yet. No, I'm dead serious. I said something very gregarious about the Muslims, and somebody said, aren't you worried about it? I said, well, they can come kill me. And somebody saw that and go, oh, James, well, see you later. So I guess we shouldn't attempt that. So let me dive right in. So I'm going to give you one that, so we know that deathbed visions, y'all know the difference. So deathbed visions means you die, but you see stuff at the end. My dad had one right there where you're sitting, Daniel, and right before he died. It's very common. I can give you the stats. Lee Strobel's book goes on stats and studies, and a hospital in New York, they're saying 80% of the nurses' deathbed visions. They see something, right? They experience something. It's very common. We hear of elderly people, I shouldn't say I'm old, but when they're passing on, and young kids too, we see stuff or become more alert at the end. This is very common, everything else. So that's a deathbed vision. We'll call those DVs. Near-death experiences means they come back to life. And the definition I'm going to steal from everybody else is an NDE is the individual is clinically dead, frequently no heartbeat or brain waves. By the way, I've heard atheists come out and say, oh, blah, 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 and the doctors went, there's nothing here, unless you have a machine otherwise, right? And these are not believing doctors, by the way. NDEs are described as being conscious, sometimes seeing or hearing things that would be impossible if they hadn't had an out-of-body experience. They return to tell their story. So I'm going to give you one, and I got this from Rick Warren this summer. Most people don't know. If you don't know who Rick Warren is he wrote a book called Purpose Driven Life. Of course, he wrote Purpose Driven Church and everything else. And I did not know this about, and been around Rick, and he's retired from Saddleback, but he's still running around the world, by the way, and him and his wife. And I did not know he was part of the hippie movement in California, if you've seen the documentary, right? He was a hippie, and he happened to be very gregarious about it, and he got the attention of a young evangelist named Dr. Billy Graham. And in fact, in Rick Warren's library, which I cannot describe, no offense to any presidential library I've seen, he has a lot of Billy Graham's personal stuff that he gave him.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to take this from Billy Graham, and it's in Billy Graham's book. This has been vetted out for a long time, for over 50 years, 40 years. He said he was the passing of his maternal grandmother. The room seemed to fill with a heavenly light, Billy Graham said. She sat up in bed and laughingly said, I see Jesus. His arms outstretched towards me, towards Billy. She said, I see Ben, her husband who had died many years earlier, and I see the angels. She slumped over, absent from the body, but present with the Lord, dead. Okay? Now, we weren't talking about NDEs back then, except for Mr. Moody, who wrote the book and everybody thought he was nuts, right? 1975. Now, I don't know if you know of Charles Templeton, but that was Billy Graham's pulpit partner who actually went away from the faith. Okay? He became the most famous agnostic, and he was out of Canada, and he lost his faith at a very liberal seminary, which I won't mention. But it was kind of a place where Bart Ehrman, shout out to you, Bart, because that's what happened to him. And I think I've told you a story about Bart Ehrman later, how he couldn't wrap himself with the God of love and hell, right, and that whole thing. So Charles Templeton, which was his pulpit partner with Billy Graham for a long time, and their closest friends, Pastor Graham said, I know that Charles, I really believe he returned to Jesus, because on his deathbed, he called out to his wife by the bed, Madeline, do you see them? Do you hear them? The angels, they're calling my name. I'm going home. Later he cried out, look at them, they're so beautiful. They're waiting for me. Oh, their eyes are so beautiful. And with great joy, he exclaimed, I'm coming. Boom. This This is in front of witnesses. This is a guy that was a believer, came away. At the end, Billy said, I wasn't there, but everyone, his wife said he started becoming, he's dying, and he started, there's probably a God, there's a Jesus, everything else, and then he sees that. Okay? This other one is an atheist named Ian McCormick. This is coming from John Burke out of Austin, Texas, who has moved here. He has a church. He's an engineer. He's one of the top NDE experts in the world. And he said that Ian was from New Zealand. He was diving and was stung 4 times by a box jellyfish. As a former diver, one time, your Katie barred the door, right? So they're and I wrote a side note, they're one of the most venomous creatures on the planet. If you one time, if you get stung, it sends you into cardiovascular collapse and death in 2 to 5 minutes. 4 times. Ian's not a believer, by the way. Okay. Ian saw visions of his mother, and he remembered his mother saying to call out to God if you ever need help. Ian said, I was in total darkness. I was terrified. I prayed out to God to forgive his sins, and a bright light shone on him, drew him out of the darkness. He said the light was unspeakably bright. It was the center of the universe. It was more brilliant than the sun, yet I could look right into it. He said the presence, and I'm giving the summary, the presence, he said, his presence knew everything about me, which made him feel highly ashamed. Instead of judgment, he felt pure, unadulterated, clean, and loved. He began to cry, and he was told to step into the light, and a man with dazzling white robes stepped out and offered his arms to me. He said, that time, I knew I was standing in the presence of Almighty God.
Was he underwater at this time?
Yes. Oh, no, he got stung. They drug him out. He's in an ambulance now.
Wow.
And they're going to take him. He's going to be dead. If this all happens, he gets revived. And, of course, now he's a very strong Christian. But he was a complete atheist. Another one that is extremely well studied, and I'm going to slow my voice down and slow my excitement down because I tend to go ADD, 4th gear. There's a 7-year-old, this is very well documented, you'll see at the end, named Katie, who was found face down in the swimming pool. By the way, I've had to hold a child in my hands about 4 years ago face down in the pool. That is no fun. And she didn't come back. In a swimming pool, she was obviously comatose, massive brain swelling, no measurable brain activity. She didn't have a heartbeat for 20 minutes. They hooked her up to the artificial lung. In 3 days, she made a recovery. She stunned the doctors and said, I met Jesus and the Heavenly Fathers. And some of the doctors, now, I'm not going to get into a lot of sidebar here. Some of the doctors like, yeah. But this was kind of blowing away. So the doctors, who you find out later, they were just asking questions. All right. Well, they asked her some questions at length. In fact, they even had her draw a picture of the emergency room and everything she saw, and she succeeded correctly placing everything and everybody everywhere. She even said she followed her family home one night, and they said, okay. So they took notes and they checked with the family, and she said she gave a specific instruction about what she observed, what her father was reading, how her brother was pushing a toll soldier in a Jeep, her mother was cooking roasted chicken and rice. She even knew what clothes each member wrote that night. Now I'm giving the summary. She's writing this down. They kept asking her questions. They called the parents. Oh my gosh, cry, right? Katie's pediatrician, the 7-year-old, Melvin Morse, was so enamored by this, he published the case in the American Journal of Diseases of Children. Did he publish it into a religious book? No. Did he put it in some kind of thing? No. He just said, this is a medical thing. I'm going to publish it. Most doctors don't. But Michael Morse said, I'm going to publish the case in the American Journal of Diseases of Children, and gathered 8 researchers to conduct a study on children's near-death experiences at the Seattle Children's Hospital, because he wanted to find out was this a once in a billion, or does this happen? He got funding for 8 researchers. Dr. Morse later concluded, I think the simplest explanation is that near-death experiences are actually glimpses in the world beyond. He said, I've read all the convoluted psychological and psychiatry things, explanations for NDEs, and none of them seem satisfying, and it doesn't make any sense. Okay? So I'm going to give... So this, because we haven't been talking about NDEs, we've been talking about angels and demons, and why is I had a summary, my assistant, this has been the kind of day it's been. I I have some summaries of some NDEs that are not very long. They're kind of like Katie's. And I've got these from several sources. These first couple are from Lee Strobel. I don't know Lee. I mean, we've emailed, but we're not like Rick Warren. We're not. I wish I knew him, but I don't. This is coming from Lee Strobel, and he said, I found these from Dr. Moreland, who studies NDEs, and Dr. Gary Habermas. Back to Gary again. A woman registered an absence of brain waves, had vital signs, was declared dead, and was being wheeled to the morgue when she regained consciousness. She accurately described the exact procedures they were using to resuscitate. How's that word?
Resuscitate.
Thank you. That's your A&M education coming in there for you. Jig Maggie's, by the way, undefeated. But used on her by doctors, repeated a joke to one of them, had told to each other, and everything she described in her deal to the T was exactly in place. I have several more, but I'm going to give you summaries, and that one goes into, she described the ceiling, the stuff. There's even, shoes and all kind of crazy stuff, but I'm going to give you some of the highlights. There's a young woman on her deathbed, left her body and went to another room at the hospital. This is coming from Lee Strobel, where she overheard her brother-in-law saying he was going to wait around to see if she was going to kick the bucket. She later embarrassed him, telling what he said and everything that was going on. And I don't know if you know Lee Strobel's personality. He's an investigative reporter, Yale graduate. He does not, these are coming from his things. There's another one they found that he reported about 5-year-old Rick was comatose with meningitis before he was taken by ambulance to the hospital. He remained unresponsive for several days. Yet he described leaving his body, seeing grief-stricken relatives during that time, and even watched as a 12-year-old girl was moved out of the room he was to occupy